Today's discussion will be between Miss Rafia Ayub of Pakistan, Miss Nalini Nair of India, Miss Alice Evelyn Monroe of Brazil, and Mr. John Golden of the United Kingdom.
Four teenagers, four different religions, united with a common belief in God, but questioning so fundamentally as to ask, should one question? And questioning so specifically as to ask, what is your recourse to God? For example, when and why and how do you pray? What about this? When do you pray?
Well, first of all, I ought to tell you what God means to me.
All right.
Well, to me, God is a sort of, well, I'm afraid he's a sort of big brother. He's a crutch on which I can lean when I feel weak, or a crutch which I don't really need when I feel strong. I usually pray when I'm in a moment of need. For instance, when I went to the American Embassy for my interview to see if I could come here, I went into a church and I prayed. I needn't have been a church, but I prayed then.
Is this general? Is this why one prays?
Well, I think I agree with what Johnny says. For example, but I need God all the time, but I need him more when I'm in trouble. Not when I mean trouble, I don't mean serious trouble. Even when I'm alone or I'm afraid, I think I need God all the time. And I pray to him to help me in my studies, to help me to pass an exam, or to help me to do all the good things. In every way, I need him.
I think I do the same thing. I go to a temple or any place of worship just before my exams. And I sort of feel that God has too many things to bother about. And if I go asking him for things daily, he's got one more person to burden with. But just when I need something and when I feel that I need his help and I've got something to lean on, it's only then that I really ask him to help me. And also when I've got to choose between something which I think is right and something which is wrong at the same time, I really need his help very badly. It's then that I look upon him.
Do you mean then that you three record to God most of the time when you need something?
Well, not when you need him all the time, but you go to pray more to God and you need him more when you're in trouble.
And you don't necessarily need things to help yourself. For instance, you could need something to help somebody else, so it's not purely egocentric.
Well, I don't know. I kind of regard this way as, I think you treat God as a religious tap. I mean, you open it when you need it and you close it when you don't need it. And then if you don't get anything out of opening it, you curse the tap.
Evie, do you pray to God daily? Do you think of God as something else than we do?
Yes, I do.
What is your concept of God?
Well, I think God is life. And I think he's the intangible goodness inside every man. And there's something that makes man strive to be at peace with himself and makes him hesitate before striking his neighbor.
Well, I'd like to ask you, let's first think, how do we know that God exists? Well, if you think that seeing is believing, if you see a thing, you can believe it. But I've been asking myself this question, why do I believe in God? I can't see him, but still I believe he exists.
You mean you only believe in what you see?
Well, yes, of course.
Well, that's different.
But I mean, I know I've been taught I must believe in God, but I'm hesitating. I just can't decide. I've always believed in my religion. I've never questioned my religion. But since coming to America and listening to other people and their points, and listening to an atheist and a Buddhist, I've decided that I must question it. And now when I come to the conclusion that I must find out if the God exists.
Evie, tell me, why do you believe in a God? Do you believe in a God because you were told there was a God, or because as a result of your own inquiries, you found that perhaps a God did exist?
I think that the reason why I believe in a God is because it honestly never occurred to me that one doesn't exist. It's natural that one exists.
Do you mean that if you'd been brought up, for instance, to think that there was a dog which existed in the jungle, for instance, which had 10 legs, you would have believed in that too?
No. You can't compare God with a dog.
Well, you can, because you don't know either of them. I think really, Evie, that if you'd been brought up in a Marxist school, you'd have been a Marxist.
I would have been until the moment I would have doubt.
Well, why don't you doubt now?
Because it's something, I don't doubt the existence of God. It's something essential to me.
But it's not necessarily true, is it?
It is true to me.
To you, well, how have you proved it? This is important. How have you proved it?
That God exists?
Yes.
I don't have to prove it. I know. There are things you've got to accept without understanding. Why don't you go down off your pedestal of self-admirance
Well, do you think that just because I question everything that I'm told, and that I criticize things which aren't necessarily proven as true, that I'm on a pedestal of self-admiration?
Yes, I do. Because everybody who says, I only believe what I see or what I understand, doesn't have a very broad mind, I think.
Oh, this is a problem which all teenagers face, though. I mean, they're brought up in a certain religious narrow mold, and then at the age of 16 or 17, they suddenly see that perhaps there's a different conception of truth.
Yes, but you've got to understand that there are things which we are not meant to understand, because if we could understand everything, then every human being would go along creating little worlds.
Johnny, I can answer your question. For example, how do we know this? I asked the question, I can answer it for myself. Well, if you go back, you find, how do things exist? Well, they say, let's say by science, if you go back into science, you reach a point where you can't explain anything further. Like we say, which came into the world first, the chicken or the egg? Now, I've asked an atheist this question, and he couldn't answer it, because that proves my point.
Well, I know the atheist reply to this. Now, personally, I do believe in God as the creator of the world and as the first cause. But just because your mind can't conceive of anything which hasn't got a cause, just because your own mind is human and you think in terms of cause and effect, it doesn't mean that the whole of creation came about by cause and effect. Your own mind has certain limits, but it doesn't mean that the whole of the world has. So, for instance, the Earth might have existed forever, and it not necessarily had a cause. I personally think it must have done.
Okay, for example, when you're in trouble, when you need something, don't you pray to God?
Yes.
Well, that's...
I also pray to God when I don't need anything, and I also appreciate God when I see something beautiful. So it's not really a religious tap, because I don't just turn it on when I feel like something, like a glass of religious water.
Okay, Evie, do you think that a person is religious if he does not question what he is given, suppose you're a Christian and you're told something about Christianity, and do you think you're being religious when you don't question your religion? When you don't try to find out what's in it?
Well, I believe in my religion, I mean, in something like these dogmas you're talking about. When I have, to start with, there are certain dogmas in Christianity you're not allowed to believe, and these are already part of what I said, something you've got to accept without understanding. But these dogmas, which I can understand, I even believe more firmly.
If I'm not mistaken, there's a part in Christianity when it is said that when Jesus died, the gates of heaven closed. Now, do you think that the gates of heaven have closed for everybody else after he died?
Well, I don't think I can answer you that. I don't know theology so deeply. But if I don't know that...
But you're going to base your whole life on this theology that you don't know. You're basing your whole life on what some nuns have told you. Aren't you? You are. In your convent school. But look, can I ask you three a question? You're all very high and mighty about your own religions, Hinduism, Mohammedanism, and Christianity. What is the difference between your three religions that make them so much different from each other?
Well, I can tell you one thing about her religion. Hinduism, they don't even know who wrote the books.
Is it necessary to know who wrote a book? There again, I should tell you that Hinduism is not a religion but a philosophy. And it need not be... A book might be written, but is it necessary that you should know an author? So many poems are written without the poets being known.
And something else, the Hindus don't even know the origin or the founder of the religion. They just suddenly have the Vedas and the other books,
but
and they believe in it.
No. The Upanishads and the Vedas are scriptures telling us about man and how to behave. There again, it isn't a religion but a philosophy.
And you only believe what you see?
Is it necessary for you to know a writer of us if the book is well and if it gives what we believe in? Three things: the preserver, the creator, and at the end the destroyer. And this is the philosophy of mankind. What else do you need? A person to
Well, Johnny needs the proof to everything. Would you accept a book without knowing the writer?
Well, if I thought it was true, I would. I mean...
And would you accept it as a religion?
Well, I'd be
doubtful
about that.
That is much better.
Yes, I might if it agreed with my own idea of life.
Okay.
I mean, there are lots of very fine books. Homer, they don't know who wrote Homer. And yet people regard it as a very fine book. It doesn't mean it
I
is
want to ask another
good.
question. I've always found that we believe in religion, we believe in God. Even when we are disillusioned, when we are disappointed, we still have faith in God. Why? I've been disappointed so many times in life. Even when I'm here in America, I've been disappointed. And sometimes I think, well, I'm not going to pray to God. I've asked him for a certain thing and he hasn't given it to me. But again, I find I go right back to God when I'm in trouble. Why do we have faith in him when we are completely disillusioned?
Well, I don't know. I do too. It's a question
Can I
might pose to
answer
someone
this?
else.
In what
Yes,
way is your disappointment? I mean, is it material things that he hasn't granted you?
No, it's not. It can be material too. For example, let's think about material things. Or anything, if you want something to, let's say, I'll give an example. A family, the father is very ill, and they pray, well, he may get well, and he dies. Well, I found families like that who've lost complete faith because they've been so religious, and they've been taught by the priest that you make this certain sacrifice, and the patient will get well. Or you give so much money to the poor, and the patient will get well, and he dies. And they don't lose faith. They still believe in God. They still do the same thing the next time. Why do we do that?
Because I think that a man has a basic need to cling to something.
But you can't, I mean, for example, if you met a friend who always disappointed you time after time, you're very good friends, and every time you're disappointed, and then you'll find that you no longer depend on that person. At the same time, in this life, we are disappointed so many times by God, but we still depend on Him. We still hope that we always think He'll grant our wishes.
First of
Why
all,
is that?
how can you be disappointed by God? God knows everything. I mean, he is working towards a plan. And just if it just happens that you're going to be disappointed, He's not going to alter His whole plan. Your prayer, surely don't believe that by praying for your own selfish interests, you're going to get God to alter the whole universe for you?
No, not selfish interest, but you always find it in this world that if you're disappointed, you still have faith in Him.
Let's try to get an answer to your question. I don't think it was answered adequately, Johnny, about the differences between religion. For example, do you believe in a heaven and a hell in Hinduism?
No, we take life as it comes. We think that birth is natural, death is natural, and life is natural. And I've been to a convent, and I've been taught that if I do something wrong, you go to hell, and if you do something right, you go to heaven. And when I came up later, I learned something about Hinduism, and I've been trying to compare both of them, and I found that I've been disillusioned completely, and I've come to the extent of questioning everything that I've been doing.
But then, Nalini, why do you do any good in this world? If you're not going to be rewarded or punished, why do you do good things? Why do you avoid the evil things?
Do you think that everything man is doing now is just because he's going to be rewarded in the
Yes, at least in my religion. I avoid the wrong things because I know after life I will be punished.
Just because of that? You do these
not
things
not
just
only
for
because
fear?
not for fear, but because deep in me I want to do the good thing. But it also has to do with religion too. It has an effect. I can say that frankly. As a person, it does affect me.
How many painters and how many people have painted such beautiful things, but they haven't been rewarded in any way.
Yeah.
They've died, and their paintings have come back to earth after they've died. But it doesn't mean that during their life they've been rewarded. I think I don't do anything with a sense of being rewarded in a way.
Yeah.
Do you, Evie?
There's what?
Do you do things? I'm asking about the difference in religion. You believe that there is a heaven and a hell, and I'm asking, can one have a religious philosophy without believing in a heaven and a hell?
I think you can. I personally believe in a heaven or a hell, and I would like to raise a point here among good and bad, since you're talking about it. Should a person choose what's good and bad, or choose between the things society and religion decreed as good and bad?
I think a person should choose what he thinks is right. Whether society accepts, if he thinks a certain thing is right. So what is the truth for you is not the truth for another person.
Yes.
But doesn't that go against Islam?
It may. So as I said, I'm at a point where I just can't decide. I had never questioned my religion, but now I am questioning, and I find that there are certain things in Islam which I just can't follow, which I just can't believe.
Raffia, don't you think that society needs a sort of convention of what is right and what is wrong, or else you have complete anarchy? Because I know a lot of people who genuinely believe in free love, but if everyone were to go around practicing free love, you'd have anarchy.
Yes, there are limits, I agree.
Well, I think you ought to qualify your statement
And
then,
who
that
are
everyone should
supposed to
decide their
limit?
own truths.
Yes.
Well, when did you all begin to question? It seems to me all of you were questioning in a certain measure. When did you begin?
I started questioning my religion at home, and more after coming here. And I think I started questioning that again when I saw so many religions. I've been to many of the different churches and temples, and I haven't been to a mosque yet, but I've been to to a synagogue, and I've seen so many things, and I've questioned each and every religion, not specifically mine own.
Well, I never questioned my religion at home. I prayed 5 times a day because I knew I had to. That's what my religion taught me, and my parents wanted me to. I tried to follow whatever my religion said, but not since coming here. I've questioned everything, and I'm at a point where I'm trying to convince myself that what my religion says is right, but others are trying to convince me that it is not right.
Yes, I went to a Methodist. I'm in a Methodist family, and I went to a Church of England school, so I was quite a devout Christian. But then at the age of about 13, I found that I disagreed with the sermons a little, you know, in small details. And by the time I was 16, I had no common ground at all. They were talking about different things completely from what I was talking about. So I left the church, I left the whole of Christianity, and I'm now just trying to build up again on a basis.
And I'm very afraid that if I talk a lot about my religion and, you know, hear other people speaking about too, they might convince me that there are certain things in my religion which are not right.
You know,
and I don't want to be convinced because I've been brought up for 17 years believing that my religion is right. And here all of a sudden 34 people are telling me, well, this is wrong and this is wrong with your religion. And I don't want them. I don't want to be convinced.
Well, we're all seekers in a certain way, but how do you think it is in America? I mean, I know a lot of people in England, for instance, do rebel against their parents' religion, but I found that in America there's a tendency to go to church even if one disagrees with what they say, just because one's parents want one to. There's a sort of conformity in going to church. Personally, I think that in America there's far more churchianity than Christianity.
Well, it's the same in Pakistan, Islam, all Muslims, we go about our parents who are Muslims, so the children are Muslims, there's no choice. We're following traditions and traditions. They go to the mosque because the parents are going. It's just like in America.
Organized religion is based on that.
Well, don't you think truth is far more important than a sort of conformity, a tradition of organized religion?
Until a person is able to reason for himself, he's got to have grounds.
Yes, but you yourself are a very intelligent girl, and yet you're rather reluctant to go against 15 years of indoctrination from
nuns. No, I'm not for myself.
Yes.
I'm not reluctant for myself. I'm reluctant for the people I will hurt by doing that. I don't think that I should do that as soon as now when I'm not completely certain of what I want to believe.
So, in fact, you'll never really have an opportunity because your mother will always be against you changing your religion, and you'll never want to offend your mother.
Oh, but that means now what, you see, my parents are foreign, and they kind of believe that a young girl of 17 doesn't have her mind made up yet, and they'd rather wait. But if after some years, let's say at 21 and 22, I come up to them and say, I don't agree with my religion anymore, they'll accept it, but right now they won't.
But by the time you're 21, your thinking for 21 years along Catholic lines will have been conditioned.
Look, I'd like to move it on to the area which concerns everybody, and that is, do you think that there's any hope that religion can begin to get people together before man really destroys himself?
I think so. I think Muslims can be kept together by their religion, Islam.
No, but we're talking about people. For example, what was the core that made Hindu and Muslim go apart? What was the real reason that there was such strife?
Religion.
I hope religion never does bring everyone together, because I think that if the world were to be united, even under 5 great religions, I think there'd be a sterility of thought and a conformity of thought which would be very destroying. The thing which has made the church more liberal and more enlightened, I think all through history, especially in the 18th century, was the attack of the enlightened philosophers who were atheists.
But what do you think the church can do, religion can do in the world now, Johnny? Is it keeping people apart? Is it bringing them together?
Well, I mean, in America, for instance, you have a very active church. You have several different active churches, and yet they don't split America into 3 different camps.
Well, but what is your hope for the world? Would you say, for example, that the world would be better off if everybody was Christian?
No, definitely not.
Would you, Abby?
No, I don't think
How about you, Rafi?
No, I don't think so.
I think it's something very individual.
I don't think so
Yes.
either. I think what is good for me might not be good for others. So it's just that. Yes. But I think if people sort of keep their ideas to themselves and think of truth as their own search for truth, it's going to be much better than trying to indoctrinate others. I don't think that's right.
Okay, then, so if you believe in a personal religion, why are you a Hindu, why are you a Muslim, and why are you a Catholic?
Again, I told you, I might be a Hindu, I might say that I'm a Hindu, but there again I'm questioning my religion. I've always been questioning my religion till I've been old enough to question it, till I've been old enough
Johnny,
to
you
think
can't
of it.
just cut ties like that.
Of course you can't, no, but you can question the fundamentals of your belief.
Well, that's what we all are doing
We
right now.
started it now.
Well, this is going in a circle, because this is where I say again, why haven't you done it yet?
Oh, you're very drastic. I mean, why haven't you done this and said that? I mean, it goes slowly, Johnny.
Yes, well, it has to, yes.
And let me call you upon a point. You said that in America, the different religion has not split America into 3 different nations, but it has certainly split America into thousands of different communities.
Which is a good thing, which means that there is full representation of all
Do
different
you think
philosophies
it's
in America.
good that the
Of
Jewish
course.
don't mix with the Catholic and the
Oh,
Catholic
okay.
don't mix with the Protestants and everyone keeps in their separate circle the way I've seen?
Are you telling me that the towns are divided according to religion in America?
They're not divided, they are aligned, but there is certainly a
I think
mental division.
I think America, more than any other country, has religious integration.
But how does this... I can't quite understand. If you're arguing for each individual's search for truth, aren't you arguing against organized religion in the
Yes,
world?
that's what I'm
Yes,
saying.
I mean, I'm arguing against Islam, but I'd never thought about it. I was following a family tradition, but since coming to America, I've gone against it.
But are you saying then that organized religion has contributed nothing in the world and in the course of history?
Yes, it has contributed very much, and it's representing a task. I mean, each man is going to take upon himself the burden of doubt and the responsibility of finding out what he wants to believe and keep doubting until he found something good to believe. Then you see that organized religion is it's a kind of organization, indoctrination you have received upon which you can build constructive doubt.
Each man takes on himself the burden of doubt. But when is this going
When's
to
going to
happen?
happen? Yes.
When it's happening every day, you're taking the burden and I'm taking the
You're
burden.
not.
I am so.
You're still afraid of what your mother will say.
Well,
so
of
when-
course, Johnny.
Look, this is what makes me despair, the fact that there are so many people, and you're a very intelligent example of this, but there are so many people who are still afraid of going
Johnny,
against their
excuse me,
parents.
I'm not afraid. I'm respecting my mother, which is a very religious person, and I don't want just to turn around and say, Mommy, I don't believe in what you believe.
Well, this introduces another point. Should you let your respect for your mother come between you and a search for truth? I'm not sure that you should.
Well, I think that probably in England, you British are very cold and...
Thank you.
Excuse me, you're very, phlegmatic and go against everything. But at least where I live, we take family duties very seriously and we try to respect as long as we can.
But Alice, I agree with Johnny because I'd never done that. But I know when I go back, if there are certain points in my religion that don't agree, I'm going to tell my parents.
So am I, but
I
not
respect
now.
my
Why
parents.
not?
Why not now? This is the time to start.
You're implying that I don't love my parents. I do love my parents, but I appeal to them in a rational way that the pursuit of truth is just as important as family ties.
Johnny, you're asking me to go against my mother in this wrong minute. But I'm not certain.
no.
Excuse me, I'm
No.
not certain right now if I do disagree with everything. I'm finding out slowly. The minute I discover that I honestly don't believe in it, I'll go and tell my mother so.
I think you better work on your mother pretty soon.
Yes, but look, Abby, don't you think by telling her from now slowly that I'm reading books on religion and I found out certain things which I don't think is right, and I'm trying to see what other religions can say about it and trying to seek the truth, don't you think that's going to be much better than suddenly after 21 one day
Giving her
you
a
come
blow.
and tell us that I've changed my religion?
No, of course I'm going to prepare the...
Why is
Wait.
this questioning happening now? Has it always happened?
Do you think it's the product of a sort of more dynamic society? I mean, I don't think many people in Pakistan will have doubted before Pakistan really began to emerge as a modern country. When tradition predominates, I don't think you'll have many people doubting. I think in the more advanced countries,
Yes,
you have the teenagers who do
See,
rebel.
when you only meet people from different religions and they tell you the wrong points of your religion and what they think is wrong, then only you realize that there's something wrong with religion. If I had never met a Buddhist or an atheist or a Christian, I would have never thought there was anything wrong with Islam. I would have thought everything written in the Quran was the right thing. But now I do doubt it because I have spoken to these people.
Do you believe that when this questioning time comes to the minds of people of our ages and even of older ages, that they should turn to themselves for the answer by self-sufficient conclusions, or should they go and seek on other religions?
Well, isn't belief in a God sufficient
Yes,
in
that's
itself?
what I want to ask. Do you have to believe in any specific religion or just believe in God itself? Or has religion made God or has God made religion?
Well, can I answer that?
Please.
I don't think that man ever made religion.
Then who made religion?
Men, no, men, you see, each man each different religion started like, I think it started like this. Each person got a different conception of God, and each different conception of God was one different
Then
religion.
man made religion.
He didn't make
He
religion.
got a conception of God.
Yes.
No, he didn't make. Do you mean religion as a organization of rights, or as a figure of God?
An image of God.
What exact religion do you follow?
I am Catholic.
Yes, then how exactly do you think Catholicism came about? I'm just asking a
It
question.
came about as all religion, as organized religion.
So did man make that religion, or God made that religion?
Well,
Do you
to start with, a man could never have made that religion without being inspired by God, so there you come.
So
The
we have
cause
come
of
to a
it.
conclusion now. What's the result?
I don't
Evie,
think that man made the religion, but man didn't make God.
do you,
We
re-
can say that.
do you really think, Evie, that all the trappings and the dogma of the Catholic faith were given through Christ? Do you think that the hierarchy of bishops and clergymen, that the idea of confession, that all the sacraments came from Jesus Christ?
Johnny, can I answer this?
Hmm?
As I
I'd like you
said,
to.
I'm in a period of doubt right now, and I can't say just what I believe, and so I'd rather say that I'm finding out, and then I'll let you know.
And I think
Okay.
the point you've all established is that as the world has gotten closer together and everybody has come in contact with other ways of thinking and other religions, that you do begin to question, to find out what is good for you. I like your point of every man taking on himself the responsibility of doubt. You're predicating a society when everyone is educated, a world indeed, and when everyone is able to think for himself. That is a kind of utopia. But it seems to me what you're saying is maybe something Norman Cousins said just a day or two ago, when he said, since theology couldn't exist without man, then maybe the different theologies can transcend themselves in order to serve in the cause of man. That's all the time we've got. Next week we'll be talking about what form, not of religion, but what form of government in the future, and again hitting this problem of whether religion or government can first unite man, or in other words, if man's spirituality can save him before his practical life destroys him.